Hello, my name is Elena Navarro and I'm going to talk about my research on literature as a tool to increase the students' motivation in the EFO class. This is the outline of my presentation. First, break motivation, then introduction and brief literature review, research design, likely findings and results, discussion of outcome, conclusion and future intended research, and finally the references. The project motivation for this research was double. First, there was my interest as a student, where I observed that literature was used in the Spanish class, language class, but not used in the English class the same way, since it was more about comprehension questions rather than understanding the text or creating your own based on what you have read. Then there was my experience as a teacher in practice in the ES La Estrella, where I could observe how the teachers care about the literary aspects of a text, rather than just make the students read a novel or a short story and then ask them a couple of comprehension questions. But first of all, to understand why using literature, we need to understand what literature is. Well, there has always been a clear distinction between the descriptive and the honorific, being the honorific the one that refers to the one of the literature of quality, and the descriptive the one of not. So, in other words, literature with capital letters is the one that talks about canonical text and is praised by critics, and there is literature, the one that belongs to pop culture. However, Robson and Robson give a third definition of literature, which is very interesting for the teacher because it includes a wider variety of text inside the classroom. Because literature is any written document of a community, which includes films, TV performances, folk ballads, everyday life, limericks, jokes, witticism, and so on. Another literature review, because to understand why using literature in the classroom, we need to understand the approaches that have been used and are used nowadays. First, there is neo-criticism. It focuses on canon literature for the language class, while the external elements, like the context, the historical background, the author's citation, or the reader's opinion are not taken into account. Then there is structuralism. It focuses on the linguistic and the structural aspect of a text rather than on its aesthetic value. Then we have stylistics, which focuses precisely on the aesthetic value of literature. This allows students to learn about different types of registers, types of text, language conventions of literature, which was the one used by the teacher at ES La Estrella. Then we have story grammar approach, which focuses on the linguistic features that make a text of a particular genre. Students need to be aware of the text structure in order to understand the text. Then we have reader response approach, where the student's role is to give meaning to the text. This is highly motivating and also highly effective according to critics. Then we have malice, the critical literary approach, where literature is used as a resort. And then we have a stylistic approach, where the focus of literature is in the text, in the literary value. And then we have Carter and Long, the language-based model. So literature is a tool to learn a language. It is a way to work with familiar grammar, lexical, discourse categories, to expand the knowledge of the students that the students have of a given language. In this case, English. Then we have the cultural model, which allows students to expand and raise the awareness over different cultures, a notion of the target language. Then we have literature as a personal growth or enrichment, which is the one that focuses on the student's personal experience. A student's real-life experience is fundamental to understand it. And these last two are highly important because in the integrative approach, which is the one that I used, is based of the integration of these different methods. In particularly, the story grammar approach, the reader response, cultural model, and also literature as a personal growth or enrichment, which is very similar to reader response approach in some aspects. Then we have the benefits of using reader literature in the classroom. For language skills, reading is practice, whether extensive, which is the one that I observe, or intensive, which is the one that I'm going to use. Then also writing, because students are able to produce their own texts based on what they have seen. Also speaking, if debate is encouraged, and we can develop activities in order to practice this skill, which is what I'm going to use too. And then finally listening, because yes, using literature can allow you to use listening in the classroom. For example, listening to a poem, or listening to a song, or listening to a certain excerpt of a text, which is what I'm going to use. And they are going to be exposed to the listening of a poem. Then the critical thinking and creative skills are highly developed through writing, also through speaking. Besides, they are also exposed to authentic material, which is highly important to higher levels of expertise in the target language, as it is the case because it's going to be about a group of sixth form education. However, I'm going to explain the group characteristics later on. Also, it allows students to raise their intercultural awareness. This is related to the cultural model. Then, personal growth. Their experience are very important to understand the text. And motivation, which is the main aim of this research, to increase students' motivation through literature. The research questions are two. How does the kind of text influence the students' attitudes? If there is any difference regarding what text is used, and then which text is more important to increment the students' motivation in relation to today's problems. Because we need to increase student motivation, and the best way is to relate it with their personal experience. The lesson plans that are based on this integrative approach are about a poem, the General Review of Sex Situation by Derek Parker, a monologue, My Vagina Was My Village by Eve Ensler, and finally a song, Mama by Ray B.O.K. We are in the third section, research design. First, the context of the study is the IES La Estrella Bilingual High School from Madrid. Students for sixth form education from a bilingual section. There are 21 students between 15 and 17 years old. The data collection will be done through classroom observation, both of the students and of the teacher, about this first lesson that I talked that used statistics, and then questionnaire, one before the lesson plans that the researcher developed, and one after the lesson plans that the researcher developed in order to collect feedback from students. The data analysis will be qualitative through this classroom observation, and also quantitative thanks to the questionnaires. The plan of action will be very simple. First, observation of the problem, working on extensive reading for too long without connection to students' opinions and likes through the stylistic approach created this problem of motivation, which was very low among students. Then planning, which consisted of the design of the 3 lesson plans in intensive reading, dealing with different types of literature, genres, and related them with today's problems and likes. In addition to this, the development of the 2 questionnaires. The aim is to increase the motivation. Then the action. After we give them the first questionnaire, then we analyze the first questionnaire and re-examine the already designed activities in order to introduce some changes based on this feedback, and then we put the lesson into practice. And finally, we give the students questionnaire 2 to get feedback from them. While we are doing the action, we are also dealing with observation, because we observe students' reaction to the lesson plans while teaching. And finally, there is the reflection and interpretation of the data collected. Would have been taken place to evaluate if the lesson plan was valid to enhance student motivation through literature or not. The likely findings and results are that motivation increases, the different types of text produce different responses, being the song or the monologue the ones that create more motivation among students, and then linking literature with today's problems increases students' motivation. How about the outcome? We see that student-centered class increases motivation when they are related with today's problems, and also that the poem is the more like text, which was not expected. Finally, the conclusion is that this sample of research is not representative part of the population, and this should be continued in other groups in the future to evaluate its validity. Finally, here are the references. Hope you enjoyed the presentation.